What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Girls with Goals with your hosts, Anne Catherine
and Caroline.
Today, we're talking about the fact that you can literally do whatever you want and there are no rules.
The fact that life has no rules, and sometimes we put rules on ourselves. I feel like I do all the time. Like, I just have subconscious rules in my head about how I'm supposed to live, how I'm supposed to think, how I'm supposed to react to different situations. But when you really stop and think about it, there's no rules. There's no rule book for living life, for being here.
Like, they're the laws and stuff.
Of course.
But beyond that, you can literally do whatever you want. As long as what we always say is, as long as you're respectful and as long as you're not infringing on other people, you can do whatever you want, and you should do whatever is going to make you happiest and live your best life.
I also think outside of that, like, macro scale of making the choices of how you actually live your life, I also see myself sometimes having subconscious rules in my head and, like, making myself feel guilty about something because I feel like I should feel guilty about it. Making myself feel embarrassed about something because you feel like you should be embarrassed about it. Kind of like you revert to emotions and thought patterns that we feel like are the rule of, like, how we are supposed to live, rather than thinking about how we can actually control those emotions and thought patterns to be ones that serve us more. So I think it even goes down into the small, micro mental things like that when we talk about there are no rules.
I feel like that also touches on, like, the fact that sometimes we live in the third person or live through how other people are going to view us rather than just, like, how we are naturally going about life. Because, like you said, sometimes you're in a situation that you're not embarrassed, or you don't feel guilty about something, or you don't feel bad about something. Mm-hmm. But because you feel like you should, you then force yourself to feel that way.
Yeah.
And that's not because you actually want to feel that way, because you weren't feeling that way in the first place. It's because you think you should feel that way, or you think other people would want to see you feel that way in that situation. Yeah. And that's, once again, like, living in the third person, which happens too often, and it is super easy to fall into a pattern of living in the third person, or, like, living detached from yourself and what you actually want and how you actually want to think. Mm-hmm. But, like, that's not what we're here to do. And if anything, like, this show is to get you to live in the first person, to get you to live for yourself and be confident in that decision. So there are no rules, and you should not be living according to any rules that you did not make up for yourself. I feel like I've always loved this concept of the fact that there are no rules for life. I mean, like, if you look at my door, I feel like we've talked about my door a lot, which our friend was staying with us the other day. So pretty much we're recording in my room right now. And I've lived in this room for
5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, we moved into this house like 5 years ago. And so I've had this room for a while. And obviously it's like low-key childhood bedroom. There's nothing in here except for the only, like, decoration piece is the back of my wall is filled with sticky notes, and they all just, like, have little sayings or, like, drawings or something like that on it.
Doodles, if you will.
Doodles. One of them literally says it's my world. One of them has a crown and it says, hey, that's mine. It's just, I don't know, it's just, like, little things that are essentially, like, do what you want in life. Like, the world is your oyster. Do your thing. On the front of there are no rules in life except for the laws and, like, basic human decency, but, like, that is implied, and everything we say, that those are implied. So there are no rules except for the ones that you want to create for yourself. But in the however many years that I've enjoyed this concept or been aware of this concept in my life, it's obviously come in and out in some phases of life. This idea that there are no rules and that, like, live for yourself and literally, like, do everything that you want in life has come in and out, and sometimes it's, you know, phases have more saturated versions of that, and sometimes I just completely forget about that topic at all, which is normal. That's natural. Like, you can flow in and out, but the times that I really feel this and I feel like I embody the fact that there are literally no rules in life are the times when I'm, one, like, present in my own life, and 2, living a life that I'm very, very happy with. So, like, summer, that's my element. That's my element. That's when I'm, like, doing literally the most. I'm always outside. photosynthesis, like energy is up. I feel like that's obviously a natural thing for a lot of people, but some people love a winter, some people love a fall. I don't. I love a summer. And so often in the summer, that's when I feel, when like my energy is so up, that's when I feel like there are no rules. I'm gonna live my life for me, and it's so easy. It's like exponential when you're naturally in that place where you're like enjoying life and have more energy for life, that you're gonna embody this idea that there are no rules in life. So if you're feeling that this summer, like, embrace it. There are no rules, and we want to see you live with no rules.
Whatever that means for you. Let's start by talking about the kind of more macro concepts about there are no rules, because I think that is where we see it most, like this linear life path that everyone feels like they have to follow. You literally start going to school when you're like 5 years old. You keep going to school, you graduate high school, you have to go to college, you get a degree, you get a job. But that doesn't always leave space, one, for all of the other incredible parts of life, like traveling, like maybe working before you go to college if you want to get some sort of experience, or if you want to make money, or if you want to do volunteer work.
I support that.
Yeah, or not.
I'm literally in college. I support not going to college.
So one, it doesn't take into account all of the other things in life that one might want to enjoy while on that path. And it also doesn't consider the people who may be better off taking a different path or shifting the order of things around. There's not one way to do life, and I think that we have created this blueprint of how your life is supposed to go for the most success, perhaps, is where people go with it. Is that really the path for most success for every single person? No. Is that really the path for optimal happiness and health for every single person? No, not for every single person.
It definitely could be,
and
but
it definitely
for like
can
most
be.
people, it's not.
Yeah,
Because not one thing is not going to fit for most people.
and there's so much legitimacy for it, and it works for so many people, and a variation of it, I would say, works for the majority of people, but a variation of it, meaning that is not a set rule, and you can have flexibility in your own life, and you can take that path, and maybe you throw some curveballs, you throw some winding roads, you take a couple roads less traveled, and you reach the same destination.
Where did this poetry come from?
I don't know, it's just popping off. But
that was like verbatim a poem.
Well, someone might want to write it down and put it on a sticky note and put it on their wall.
No, like that's it. It exists as a poem.
The road less traveled. Yes, that is like a legitimate term.
Yeah.
But that was just one line. I said you might not want to go on the linear path. You might want to take some curves, or you might want to take some roads less traveled. That is like a term that people know. The entire statement that I said wasn't like verbatim,
the formal poem.
But I think that that's the truth. Obviously, there is a legitimate purpose in going to school and getting an education. Obviously, there is a legitimate purpose in getting a typical job. There's a legitimate purpose in all of these, and I think the structure was created, especially in an older time where maybe there weren't as many options for paths to take, and also because it seemed like the formula for the majority of people to get an average level of success, because without doing it, you take a bigger risk where it could go much greater, but it could also somewhat flop in a way. So I think maybe it's kind of like a safe zone of, hey, this is a formula that we know works. Does it always? Because could your mental health deteriorate, and could you not get the life experiences that you want, and then you're like not as happy as you could
or
be?
You could be super happy. You could be happy, you could be perfectly content with your life in that path, but like there's so many other options, and you have YOLO, you have one life. Like you should so be playing around with your life.
I like that, playing around with your life.
Like, it's literally a game. And that's my idea of, like, there are no rules. Life is such a game. And you have 85 years, if you live that long, to just literally play around with it and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's so much time to live from every perspective and to try a bunch of different things and to just, like, do whatever.
Be a lot of different things at once, because there's no rules about exact box that you have to fit in, an exact niche that you have to embody. I was at the dentist yesterday, and he was like, oh, you got a birthday coming up soon. What are you doing? 'Cause it's like my 21st birthday. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'll celebrate somehow. And he was like, well, you must be getting to the end of college. Like, what's your plan for the years after that? And I was like, I could see my life going so many different ways. And that's how I answer any of those questions when people are like, oh, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to do that? And I'm like, I know I'm going to be doing something that feels big. I know I'm going to be doing something that I'm really proud of, something that I'm excited to do every day. But I could see it going in so many different directions. I think that knowing the vibe of the life that you want to live and knowing the feeling that you want to create is much more important than saying, I have this exact set concrete path and nothing else can come, because then you don't leave yourself open to the other opportunities that could come along the way. We also live in a world that is always changing. There's always new technologies and companies and opportunities that are being created. And so what if something like that comes along that's a better fit for you, but you've always had this set path that you have to go down? You haven't left yourself open to all of these other opportunities. So I like the idea of like, treat your life a little bit like a game. Like, you reach new levels, you unlock new things. So say life is like Mario Kart. Sometimes you go too fast and you fall off the cliff. Sometimes you take a wrong turn and you fall off the cliff. You always get to restart. You always get to try again, and you'll always eventually reach the finish line. And maybe
don't go jumping off of cliffs, but like, don't go jumping off of cliffs. But you can absolutely, completely mess up absolutely everything, and time moves on. Mm-hmm. You'll figure it out. Like, what an experience.
What an experience. Take a risk.
So that's like macro level. You can build your life in the 85 years or whatever the lifespan is. Maybe by the time we get there, it'll be like 160.
I heard something recently that was like, the longer you live, the longer your chances of living longer are, because we're always developing like new technologies and health things to keep us alive longer.
At some point though, like, would you just not want to, like, where's the limit?
I don't know.
Where's the limit? So macro, you can build your life out like with whatever phases you want, and you can make those phases evolve. You can completely do 180s, like, no rules in life. You can follow whatever path fits most for you, and that whatever path you want to explore. Micro, day to day, you can also have no strict, debilitating rules. That's the thing about me saying there are no rules. When I tell you that there are no rules in life, I mean there are no debilitating, limiting rules in life. You can do whatever you want, and you should not be holding yourself back based on any made-up rule, because everything is fucking made up.
True. Like, you have your habits, you have your routines, but you don't have any rules that are stopped. Like sometimes I get so crazy as to, like, I'll make up rules why I can't do something really small and fun, like, not to bring it back to my longboard, but I've barely ridden the thing because I'm always coming up with an excuse of something more productive I could be doing. And I find that I do that a lot with myself. I'm like, oh, I haven't been outside today, why would I longboard when, like, I should probably hit my daily walk first? And then I never end up doing it. Or I'm like, oh, I'll wait until sunset because it'll be nicer, and then sunset comes around and I'm too tired.
Sometimes,
I'm always creating these stupid rules that mean nothing and stop me from doing fun things.
Daily habits are great. Consistency in your daily habits, great. Doing the same thing every day to the point where you don't have time or the leeway to fit other things in, not great. Like, you should have time and you should have the ability to, like, do super fun things. And I know we talk about a lot about health and fitness, and that's like kind of where this whole situation of the podcast started, / our personal lives. It's a huge topic. I recently got, I'm going to bring it up again because I've been talking about this for days on end. I got a, like, body scan, an in-body. So when I first joined the gym that I was going to in Boston in January, I got an in-body scan, which takes, like, your weight, your, not that BMI matters, but
your muscle
mass, like water retention, body fat percentage, all of that. And then, so it's been about 6 months, and then I'm just moved out of Boston for the next 6 months. So I was like, I'm leaving this gym, like, let me hit it again and just see where we ended up. And I knew that things had changed, but also I scheduled this like a week out. So I knew I had a week, and I was like, let me put my best foot forward. Like, I'd already been hitting it hard. I'm like, nose to the
6
grindstone.
months of progress.
For 6 months, I'd been, like, hitting it hard. But I was like, this 1 week cannot mess things up at all. Like, every single day, I'm going to hit my, like, my solid gym, my solid cardio, my solid, like, cook all my meals, eating, like, do my thing. And it was gonna go great because I was, like, alone in Boston, and then I was home and didn't really have many plans for the week. And I was like, okay, this is great. I'm just gonna, like, commit to this and see, like, really, once again, put my best foot forward and give it my all before I do this final, like, body scan and see what I've done in the past 6 months. Then one of our friends comes and stays with us, and she was gonna stay for one day. I was like, no worries, that's not gonna, like, throw me off that much. And then she stayed for, like, 3-ish days, which means we had so much fun. She was leaving, I was like, she, like, plans changed, and that's why she ended up staying. I was like, selfishly, I love that your plans got a little messed up because you got to stay. But that means that I was eating out a lot more and not gymming that hard, not really having that much movement because we were just kind of hanging out, and was absolutely not, like, eating as I should. And so this was 3 days out of my, like, 7 that I was supposed to be, in my mind, preparing for this little, like, body scan. And I was like, oh my God, it's, like, not gonna be good. It's gonna be all this, blah, 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 blah. I only had, like, 2 days or whatever that I actually, like, was on my shit this week. But, like, the body scan happened, and it was great. Like, I absolutely slayed it. I think
her progress over 6 months was, like, great.
It was iconic.
So it's like, what's the
Like,
last 3 days gonna do? It was your progress over 6 months, you know? But I get that.
No, but I'm saying, like, my whole daily routine, like, healthy habits little schedule was so messed up. And I have for the past 6 months, like, been eating up, being social, and switching up my routine. My point being, like, you can longboard, and it's way more fun to longboard than, like, go on yet another walk.
Right.
Because sure, a walk is fun.
But I
like,
do it every day.
You do it every day, and, like, you don't longboard every day. And even if you do start to longboard every day, like, that's super fun. That's, like, whatever. Do your thing. Let yourself, like, change things up, because it truly doesn't matter, and you should just be having the absolute most fun in your life. And sometimes that means forcing yourself to longboard, because you often get in a rut of healthy habits. And even though it's, like, good things, good habits, if you're doing the same healthy habits every day,
and they stop you from doing something else fun.
Or just, like, having spice in your life. Like, I'll say it every single episode, like, you should be having spice in your life. And that may be going for a longboard instead of a walk. Like, that is enough to, like, add spice. Add interest. Add fun. Add excitement to your life. Okay, but on the daily, you can also switch things up. So it may be going for a longboard. It also could be, like, so part of this episode is sparked by I'm obviously moving. I took all my stuff out of my apartment in Boston, and it's all, like, at my parents' house now. We'll be here for the rest of the summer. And so I was unpacking last night. Going through all the clothes that have just been in my closet that I'm like, I've never worn these in the last 2 years. Like, I'm done with these. I know I'm not going to wear them. It's just taking up space in my closet. Like, it's time to actually get around to donating them. So I was doing that, and I was going through all of the other clothes in my closet and kind of sorting them out in piles. In some clothes, I was like, oh, this is definitely Caroline's. In some clothes, I was like, this is definitely mine. But I was also, because we have, like, different styles. But I also have different styles. Like, right now, I'm literally wearing jeans that are far too big for me, boxers, and, like, a t-shirt. And I walked downstairs. Well, first of all, Dad was like, what is that? What are you wearing? And I was like, he was like, is that a style? I was like, sure. In my head and my heart, it's a style. But then I also, like, the other day wore, like, I will eat up anything Aritzia. Like, you can wear whatever you want on a clothing front, on, like, that front. Every single day you can have a different style if you want. You can have 4 very different styles, and you don't have to put yourself into this box or feel like it doesn't fit because it's not in line with, like, the rules of that. Or even, like, fashion. We all know the, like, high fashion stuff that is just 6 different items of clothing put together and, like, not following any rules. So I feel like fashion or clothing, or that, in a sense, one, it's like, it's a lot of self-expression, so it can tie to how you view yourself, because a lot of this episode, and obviously whatever we're talking about, goes back to yourself. But also it's such a visual example of this, because every single day you can switch it up, every single hour if you want to change, switch it up, like, do your thing. You can be so many different things. Also, during the day, you're allowed to be so many different things. Like,
I feel like I switch between roles and tasks and stuff so much during the day, especially since the majority of my work recently has been online. Even when I was in Boston at my internship, I would be online most days and I would go to the office a couple days. I'm now continuing the same job, but I've been doing it totally remotely from New Hampshire. I was driving to Boston like every once in a while, but I was explaining to my dad the other day, I'm like, when I'm working from home, I feel like I'm wasting so much time if I'm sitting at a desk 9 to 5 completely. Like, my schedule, I feel like I flip back and forth between things so much. Like, I might clock into work at 8 a.m. and then at 11 go outside for a walk, and then at 1 have a lunch break, and then clock out at 4 and do an activity, but then I'll get re-energized, and at 8 p.m. I'm like doing something for work again. I have a really hard time sitting still for like the entire 9 to 5 period, and I find that I'm way more productive when I can have these like intermittent breaks to get myself re-energized and re-inspired, because I lose all my creative energy and inspiration and stuff when I'm sitting there doing that. But then sometimes I'll get super sparked with motivation and I'll want to work from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. or I'll want to get up early in the morning and I'm gonna work out and I'm gonna immediately start working at like 7:30 or 8 a.m. because I'm excited about it and I don't want to wait till 9. And then other days it's different like that. So even the way that I kind of balance my working schedule every day with work that I do for other people and also the work that we do for the podcast and social media, like, I'm pretty regimented, or I'm pretty self-disciplined in always getting my things done, but I definitely let myself go with the flow a little bit with like when I need a creative break and when I need to respark my energy.
One of my notes in this like daily routine thing is about your job, and it so ties to your lifestyle. If you think about it, I know you said in the beginning of this episode a typical job, and I wasn't a fan of the word typical in that sense because I don't like that a 9 to 5 is like the stereotypical job, because one, it like isn't. I would love to see an actual breakdown of what percentage of the world, of like the working people in the world, work a 9 to 5
I think
desk
the
job like that.
A lot.
But think about all the people that are just out and about during the day.
I know.
Because they have, if they're employed, like they
Have jobs with
might
different
not
hours.
have, they have job different hours, like
schedules.
different schedules. Maybe someone works a blue collar construction job that has them up really early, but they get out really early.
Yeah.
That's a different, and then they're on a different lifestyle schedule. Maybe someone works nights. Maybe someone like there's so many different industries and different jobs
True.
that cater to different lifestyles. And why is 9 to 5 like the archetype for a stable situation of a job? Because one, that's like not true. There's so many other types of jobs that are stable, great jobs. And also 9 to 5 is, in my mind, the literal worst time to be working. That's peak existing hours.
It's true. That's your
peak
entire
existing
day.
hours.
Like,
That's your day.
A lot of your day.
Like, I'm trying to exist. I think like I'm built to exist. I don't like a 9 to 5 because, like you're saying, I would go.
And you are a very hard worker and very like motivated worker. But the 9 to 5 schedule is
9 to 5
like
schedule,
it
it's
does not
just
feel
irritating.
natural. It doesn't feel natural
It's
and
so
intuitive.
annoying. What I would do, I don't know if I've like said my routine on here because it like I love it. I eat it up, but I would not recommend it. My routine, so that I can fit in everything that I want to do in a day while working a 9 to 5, because I've been for the past like 6 months working 9 to 5. That's now switched to like freelance type stuff in the same job and same field. But because one, that caters more, like I'm so energized for it because that so caters more to my lifestyle and what I'm interested in. But my routine was 4:50 in the morning, alarm, ring-a-ding-dinging. I'm up. Immediately I'm up. I leave my house. 5:08 was the latest I figured out I could leave my house to get to the gym at 5:30. Hit a workout, hit a steam, walking to work. Now, I live in Boston. Absolutely, I could take public transportation. One, Boston's public transportation, slow, heinous, hot, packed, slow, gross. Not into it. I could city bike, but I wasn't for it. I would walk to work. and it would take me an hour, but that was my like walk of the day because I didn't have time during the day for a walk. I'm like trying to squeeze these things in, and I would get to work way early so that I could leave way early and have more daytime hours. But I would literally work, not take a lunch break. I said that to mom the other day. She's like, why won't you take a lunch break? And I was like, I would eat and
work at the same
work
time
because I'm trying to get out of there. Like, I'm not trying to stay. I'm trying to do things. I have things to do. And then I would leave at like, I would try to leave at 4 because I would get there early and I would work too much. And then scoot, walk home, do whatever I need or want to do for the rest of the day. And like that have my time. Because it's so inconvenient working a 9 to 5. It's so inconvenient. Those are my prime hours.
I know. It's strange because I see benefits of being together with the people that you're working with and being in an office, but I also think we're moving way more towards flexibility. I think the pandemic and everyone having to work at home really pushed people to understand, oh, it is possible to have a more flexible
or
schedule
just to, like,
and to
live
have
more.
remote jobs and
opened
live
people's
more.
eyes to living more.
Yeah, that it doesn't have to be so
which is my
strict.
favorite.
At the same
thing.
time, I think things crumble if every single person is working remotely. I think we've recognized that there can be much more flexibility in what a typical work schedule looks like. I think it's somewhat of a balance in between because I also think if everyone is working at home all the time, then there's issues of like we're not socializing, lack of motivation and stuff. But I do think it's become very clear that the typical might not have to be that 9 to 5, and I think a lot of people are taking risks to explore different options and embrace different lifestyles, which is awesome because there are no rules for life and nothing has to last forever. So you can always try out different lifestyles, different routines, different ways of working, and then decide this really works for me or this doesn't. I'm going to try something different. You deciding to take a remote job doesn't mean that you have to work remote for the rest of your life. You deciding to take a 9 to 5 in the office everyday job doesn't mean that you have to do that for the rest of your life. You can test out these different lifestyles and play it like a game. If that structure doesn't work for you, change mode.
Okay, so macro, build your life out over the course of your lifespan with whatever phases you want and whatever phases cater to what you're interested in at the time, and that can change. Think back to like 10 years ago, and maybe no one that's listening, I'm not old enough to think back to 10 years ago and be like, oh my god, that's such a different phase. Maybe I was like, because I was 10. In 10 years, you're going to be in such a different spot in your life that like this is just going to be a phase, and maybe you're like, wow, I'm so glad I experienced that, or maybe you're going to cringe at it and be like, what in the world was I even thinking? But in the moment, you're into it, so embrace that and like do your thing and make the most out of it. On the daily, make the most out of your days, prioritize what you want, build in what you want, and be open to changing it up and like longboarding during the day or having space and the ability to change for those fun things and not being too rigid with the rules that you put on yourself. And then I also want to break this down into like internal and external. It can feel pretty exhausting when you're always living by the trends and stuff because you can never keep up with it, and then you also lose sight of like, what do I actually like? Who am I actually? Versus if you can figure that out first, live in alignment with yourself, and then pick up on the different things that you enjoy, then I think you just feel like you're living a much smoother life. I think sharing some of our personal examples about ways that we've kind of broken from those rules and stuff, or ways that we kind of feel tied down from them. I know when you said think about like a phase you were in 10 years ago or something, I was like, oh, where were we 10 years ago? 10 years ago when we were 10 is when we moved to Hong Kong, and so we moved from New Hampshire there, and I think we were very open-minded as kids. It was immediately like, oh, like of course we can go there. And then we moved back when we were older. We came back to New Hampshire for high school, and I like felt like I was so stuck in that situation. Like it wasn't my choice. Like it was just a rule that I had to live by, like to live here. Like I couldn't embrace it when you
at
are
all.
10, like you do have to follow your parents' rules.
Yeah.
Like
but when
they
you're
say
14,
you're moving, you're
you
moving.
come back, you feel like you should have more ownership over your life, and like I didn't. But since then, I did learn to embrace things about New Hampshire, and I learned to love things about it because I was like, look, I'm going to have to be here. I'm going to embrace it and figure it out. But it has also created somewhat of a conflict in my mind of like, where do I want to live when I'm older? Because I now understand that there are a lot of options out there. We also spent last spring in Singapore. We both took a semester off.
I
and
do
worked
think about
there.
that a lot, like committing to something
That's
like wild to me.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's like, oh, do you like Boston? I'm like, not. No.
I mean,
like, I do like Boston, but I
do.
will not be living there for the rest of my life. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I know I'm not gonna live in New Hampshire for the rest of my life. But like, where?
Exactly.
I have to live somewhere.
And I've always, when I was younger and when we lived in Hong Kong, it always felt like this no-brainer to me, like, oh, I want to live internationally for the rest of my life. But now that I've gotten older, a huge part of me still wants to do that. But I also feel like the second I start thinking about those things, I either get super excited about it, or I start feeling these like rules seeping in telling me like why I have to stay in the US for all these different reasons, to like work a specific job and to be around specific people and to live a specific type of way and to take on like just the norms, kind of. Like it's hard, even when you've been exposed to different ways of life, to not still feel these rules and feel tied down, because there's literally nothing stopping you ever from going and living in another country. And also,
I was thinking about this
temporary.
morning. I was thinking about this morning as we were, obviously I knew that this is what we're going to talk about today. And I was thinking that the rebuttal to that would be like, oh, I have to take care of my family. Like, I have family situations. Like, you could come up with 1,000,001 reasons to keep you here. But at the end of the day, like, if you get on a plane, you're getting on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Like, obviously, people have different life circumstances, and you have to do what you have to do. At the same time, I think there is probably more leeway and more freedom in your life than you are making it out to be. And that doesn't mean go pack your bags right now and move across the world, but that means I'm sure you can find pockets of freedom and pockets of changes that you can make within your life that maybe you're not seeing right now, or not acknowledging, or not accepting, or just like blocking out because you're putting these rules on yourself. And so that falls more into the internal section. So external would be like thinking through life as, oh, this is the set rule, like society is telling me this, or like my parents are telling me this, or this is the like life path my family follows. And then internally would be, maybe that's out of, oh my god, you're scared to do something like that, to change something like that, in the sense of moving or huge life changes. And that would be internally putting rules on yourself. And it could be subconsciously intentional, or it could just be like,
for me,
you're doing
I
it.
find myself like, I've always wanted to live abroad again and do that, and we did when we lived in Singapore, but like in my adult life. But then I'll start down this path of like, well, when do I go there? Because is it possible for me to work there and continue the social media work that I'm doing there right now? Would I get another job? What would that job be? And if I go there when I'm not like married to someone and have a family, what if I meet somebody there and then my kids are from that country and I end up living there for the rest of my life and I'm tied down there from their family? And
but what a
what
cool
if
thing.
not?
Like,
what
there's
if,
so
like,
many different
I
options.
know, but it almost, you can find an excuse for anything. And I'm like, okay, or what if I go there for 2 years, have a great time, and then come back to the US or go somewhere else, or I make friends there who open me up to other opportunities. It's always going to be a much more positive thing. Or if it is kind of a negative thing, like Singapore was a little bit of a negative time for us, you still learn from it and grow from it and gain the experience.
A heinous life phase.
So I need to work on it. I feel like I have two very polarizing sides, where I either am so excited, one-track mind about something, or I'll like spiral about all of these questions and all of these rules.
It is wild because you can tell when, and I think everyone obviously can attest to that and has experienced that, but it's crazy to me when I can tell when Caroline is in one of those either mood. If she texts me like 17 times in a row, like really excited, new ideas. I
get a new idea and I'm like, this is it, one track mind. I can't, like, I have
and
to
it's like,
only think about this and only work on this.
Yes, those are great ideas. We should absolutely do them, but calm down for about 10 minutes and then we can like reconvene, because it's so like manic in the most exciting way possible. But it is fun that you can know that everyone can get energized about things like that. And
like my one-track mind, 2 days ago, I was told that something went wrong with my internship extension, like in the HR thing, and it wasn't able to go through, and all of a sudden, like, oh, today was going to be my last day, I'm actually not going to be able to extend. Within 24 hours, I problem solved that situation so hard. I talked to everyone I had to. Within 24 hours, one day before I was going to have revoked access to all of my stuff, I had a new contract, problem solved, we're continuing. But that was my one-track mind for like 24 hours.
I would
and
say
now
that's
I'm
like
coming
a good
off of
one-track mind.
That was
to
a
have.
good
That's
one-track
not like
mind
a
'cause I had
bad
to have it. But then
thing.
when it comes like, oh, I want to travel to this place, I'm going down the path. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go here, and I'm looking at all of the things and blah blah blah. Or like if I have a business idea, then I'm like, oh, this is it. We have to do this, and it's like all I'm thinking about for a second.
So on the front of life having literally no rules, we broke it down into macro, which is your entire life. You can do whatever you want to fill that space with whatever you want. It doesn't have to look like everyone else around you or like the stereotypical school work.
Yeah. Your life
That's
path,
it.
your life path, your work, where you live, your activities. It can flex. It can be different.
And then on a micro level, your days can be different. Yesterday doesn't have to look like today, and end of discussion. You can do what you want on a day-to-day basis, and you can prioritize the things that you actually enjoy, and the things that you actually enjoy don't have to be basic. And then there's internal versus external. So internal, the rules that you're setting for yourself, maybe it's out of fear, like trying to cultivate a sense of security, putting rules in yourself to limit what you do or what your life looks like. Don't be doing that. Or catch yourself when you're doing that and turn it around. And then external is letting others' views dictate and create those rules for you. Once again, don't be doing that. If you find yourself thinking through what other people want you to do. Maybe using the example of like you want to move somewhere, you want to take a job in a different city or move across the country for just because. Maybe you so wholeheartedly want to do that, but then you're like, oh, I can't because my mom would be sad for me to leave, so I'm holding myself back. Stupid example, but like you can't let external forces, external rules, external people that are creating these hypothetical rules for you control your life and make you lead your life in a way that maybe you don't necessarily fully want to do.
And you also can't let those internal rules stop you of, I won't let myself let this thing go because I feel like I have to feel guilty about it, and I feel like I have to punish myself for it, or I feel like I have to be embarrassed about this, or I have to continue to feel bad about this, and the second I forgive myself about it, I'm a bad person because I should be feeling bad about this. That just came to me because I was watching a TV show yesterday, and the girl was like super guilt-ridden over something, and I think her mom was like, are you scared of not being guilty because you think it would make you a bad person if you forgave yourself? And I think we keep ourselves in states of guilt, and I would say like especially guilt or like just like these down modes and stuff because we're afraid of like the construct of like what it means if we let it go and if we get past it.
Or you could personally be over something or be no longer guilty about something or no longer feeling negatively, and then not go ahead and show that or make that public because you don't know how other people are going to perceive it. That's the external rules coming at you. Point of this episode, if you take nothing away, take away that you are in control of your own life. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Life has no rules. So don't create them for yourself. Don't let people create them for you. Sometimes easier said than done because sometimes we have difficult life situations. We have difficult people. We have our own difficult thought patterns. But when you really look at the world and the grand scheme of the world, it is a little bit like we are in a simulation. It is a little bit like a game, like Catherine said. And you have the freedom to try anything you want to try, do anything you want to do, and create your own path.